Indie Comic Union presents Quilt, a collaboration between the comic makers of the Union, an original story set upon the dying patchwork world of the Quilt. Join us on the adventure, not just in the comic, but in the making of it, on YouTube, Instagram, and at indiecomic.com. Welcome back for another workshop episode on our collaborative comic project, The Quilt. This time we're taking a closer look at the Bruise-Black. It's the mythological force that the gods unleash upon the unwitting planet of Quilt when they tire of their experimentations there. Now, we already have a script that deals with the Bruise-Black, and you can take a look at that on indiecomic.com. But we spent the last week putting together a whole bunch of concept art. And now we're gathering to take a look at that concept art and see how it can inform our script and help us to create something a little bit more unique, a little bit more character rich after we've seen some visualizations and the directions that that can lead us in as we get ready to jump into producing this first issue of the Quilt. I'm Bradley Littlejohn, aka the Seahorsey. I make the comics Wiltworthy and Galactopera. You can find my work at bradleylittlejohn.com or on Instagram at the Seahorsey.
Hey, I'm Matt Laux. Very glad to be here. You can find me on Instagram at MattDrawsD&D.
Hi, I'm Monty Cantsin, creator of Scum Circus, and you can find my work on Instagram at Dr. Monty Cantsin.
I'm Connor Cottontail. You can find me on Instagram and in real life.
Oh,
Right on. Product placement is happening. Jinkpies.
Just set it back in the back.
Hi, I'm Jinkpies. Jinkpies on Instagram too, and I'm working on a comic called Night's Bloom, and you can find me on Instagram.
Right on.
Right.
So today we're going to be talking about the Bruise-Black concept for our collaborative comic, The Quilt. The Bruise-Black is the big bad. It's the darkness, the nefarious force that we all have to kind of define the terms of in order to be able to take turns drawing in the panels of our comic that is up and coming. This is one of the first drawings I even did for the Bruise-Black, and it was just to work on an icon for the website to have some kind of representation. But I purposefully left it very, very vague because I wanted to see how broad we could develop something. In our conversations, John Osborne and I just kind of stopped talking about it, except for saying it was an all-inclusive kind of consuming force. We wanted to give as much leeway to everybody's brilliant input as possible. And to that end, I think one of the first images that we got to see of the Bruise-Black, based on some of the descriptions in our script, which you can find at indiecomic.com if you're curious, looking at our page breakdown script or our more detailed scripts that are coming up there. But Robert Hamill took, I think, the first stab that we saw here, and he got that kind of cool purple quality coming out of it, and just the sense of this consuming force gushing and moving through everything like that.
Yeah, the purples, all my drawings of it are all purple now because of this picture. I just stole it from it.
And that's great. I love that because it's nice too because you can move between the ink, the black inkiness to that purple, and it still reads as that dark.
I never realized until just now the two bits in the middle look like closed eyeballs.
Oh yeah, there's that kind of evil face.
The building is really cool too.
Yeah. Robbie always sells himself short on his architectural pieces, his background and stuff. But he can really bring it when he wants to. I think it's just the issue is force of will and what he wants to be working on. This is another one from Robbie, and really cool with the hands coming out and stuff.
Well, I haven't seen this. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he's been really playing with that moire kind of pattern. And you can see that kind of moving through like a really cool zip tone.
That's so cool. And one side is sort of shaded darker. That's so cool.
Oh yeah. And and I think that concept too. I don't know if Robbie's was influenced, but this one's Dr. Monty Cantsin's piece. And you really pulled it out with those faces and things that are kind of screaming out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the way I remember I had read the script and you had asked me to have a think about the Bruise-Black.
Oh
And
yeah.
I started reading the script, and from your description, even earlier on, that the first image that came to mind was these kind of screaming faces, kind of propelling it forward and limbs coming out. And then it actually, you had it yourself in the script. You described it as that there were limbs stretching out.
Oh,
And it was exactly what I was thinking
good.
from the way you described it. And so I kind of sketched that out just as a rough idea. Just that whole idea of kind of creatures that had taken over, all kind of screaming and torture, propelling it forward and trying to escape, but never actually coming out from it.
Yeah, and that's a great a great kind of mission statement for the Bruise-Black too, because everybody's ideas of the big bad or the wicked thing or whatever it is, the thing that's been consumed, can kind of come out of this common medium of that purplish, blackish blue goo, and you'll see the arms coming out of it, the different faces coming out of it, whether it's this alien thing or this humanoid thing. Everybody's imagination can kind of be this thing that was consolidated into it and then trying to force its way back out of it into the world of the quilt like that.
Yeah. Monty, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks very
Yeah.
much. And then also just something that I was thinking of was just that because of the nature of the Bruise-Black in the comic, it's something that you need to be able to recognize visually from far back, like that it's massive in its size, but at the same time that would be identifiable up close. So that even from far back that there's massive limbs and faces screaming out, but also from up close kind of smaller faces, smaller hands stretching forward.
Yeah, that's really important actually. That's a great design note for everybody working on this, is that the Bruise-Black has to read on a huge scale when it's pouring out of a tear in the universe or when it's a river rushing down into the crater. But it also has to have that minutia to it, like it's an aggregate of all these bits and pieces, so that we can draw at big scale and small scale like that at the same time. That's so astute. Yeah.
These faces are really screaming. Like I feel very emotional about it. It's like really scary, and they feel like tortured, but also really angry.
Oh yeah. This purgatory kind of medium.
Yeah, really good.
On that note, the purgatory medium like that, Scott Finch did some images for the actual tear that will come up at the beginning. And I included this because it's a great representation that I think builds atop some of the script and the way Monty Cantsin treated the hands, and also the way Robbie brought that in for the tear here. And it's just incredible because and it's this level of abstraction. You can see reality kind of breaking, and that the substance kind of wanting to squirrel its way into our reality with this illustration. And I'll skip.
Looks amazing.
I'll skip ahead to this other one too, because this is the tear concept, and then here's the actual Bruise-Black kind of falling out of the tear.
Gosh,
wow.
It's just I just love his work so much.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So good.
Yeah.
He said that, I think I remember him saying that he was looking at like wedding veils and other like transition things.
Yeah, and things that were thresholds like that, and just and fishing nets too, which are also kind of a transitory thing, between water and the air medium that we live. We tear and pull things up out of the sea like that. That's a great metaphor for what's going on, I think, with whatever we decide the Bruise-Black really is, as we continue with the narrative of it. So,
and I'm always kind of thinking about the gods a little bit, and it's almost like what are these? Maybe these hands are like the gods' hands, just all in there and just pulling and having conflict with each other even. And
All right, I had to get a pen because I'm like, what if that's the hands of the gods?
Yeah, or like we don't need to know, but it's something that makes me wonder, like it doesn't have to be answered. But they're doing this damage. They're having this fight. They're not getting along. Something's going on up there.
Yeah. And this unleashes, and all these images aggregate that and bring forward this the plague of locusts kind of feeling, that something is pouring down. Now we'll step forward to this one with another hands from Robert. Robbie had a whole bunch this week. I think he likes horror quite a bit. I wish he was here to talk about his images himself, but I know he's a horror fan, so I think the Bruise-Black is very evocative to him.
Yeah, he just uploaded something else too.
I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of the different hands as like a corruption of other races or species that have already been destroyed by the Bruise-Black, and have already been taken. I think both of mine that I've done for it have all been around that concept of it sort of being like a high fantasy version of the Borg from Star Trek.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, on that note, Connor, let's skip forward to yours because the next one that I have is actually one of yours with that kind of.
Oh yeah, the Bruise-Barian I did.
Yeah.
It's not that good, but it was like the first working concept of what I was thinking of as the Bruise had like taken over. This one's more of a actually like taken parts of the body in more of like a body horror kind of way.
Yeah. And you had ideas about crystals and things too, and I know you used the crystal parts in here.
It was the crystals. It was mainly because there's the big area of the planet that's sort of crystalline. I use that in the later on one that'll definitely be in here because it's the better one. I just really like the aesthetic of the sectioned diamonds. If I colored it, they would all be different. All the different sections would be different tones of green, it would look. There'd be heavy lighting on it, and it would look good. But this was quick.
And both you and Robbie have been really big fans of the term bruised, or the bruise. Yeah.
I just think it sounds better, but I don't know if it's just because of the Scottish accent. The bruise.
I've been thinking we have to like the second issue. It's a great idea to have a dialogue line where they're talking about what was that stuff. Once they've pushed through the stone pass, and we can have a collect your wits moment, and they can actually coin that phrase and start to employ it, and that would be a good way to officially kind of name things, because
I think that's a good world building thing there, that you could use bruise or bruise spelled like that as like slang.
Oh yeah.
And then the official name would be the Bruise-Black. So maybe the Starbarians or whatever they're called. I keep forgetting what they're. Starbreakers.
Starbreakers, yeah.
Starbreakers, Starbarians.
That's also cool.
I think that's a thing already. So if it's not, then we're stealing it. And if it is, we're stealing it anyway.
Yeah.
But they as like a more I don't know if they're civilized, but they're a more structured society could call it the Bruise-Black, and then the creator critters could call it maybe the Bruise or.
Oh, that's good.
Bruise.
That's a good writing touch. Yeah.
Yeah, having a little bit different names depending who it is.
Because they're gonna have to talk different if they're from somewhere else. I don't know if it's just because it's all the characters in Honey here are trying to be from specific places, because in Scotland the town over has a different accent from you. They sound nothing like you, so every character in Honey here has a different way of speaking because they're from a different place. And if the creator critters, I would think they would speak one way, and the Starbreakers would speak a different way, and if they come across someone else, they would have a different way of speaking.
Oh yeah, and that's fun too. And I find some writers really have an interest in nailing down speaking patterns and dialects and putting those details in. And just like the idea of that term, the bruised, it arose in the Discord forums just organically, and so we'll see that different artists and writers will just bring that in as we start to put all this together. This on that crystal note, because you were talking about the crystals in that last one, and I know Robbie brought a lot of that crystal enthusiasm too last week when we were talking, and he worked up this one for those crystal troopers, which I guess also Brian Judge was really pushing for, like a stormtroopery level kind of line them up kind of villain that can be there, that creates a sense of sort of, I guess, fascist menace, something Borg like assimilation kind of menace. Yeah,
I like the idea because Gink Beast did the planet, and there's a big area of it that's blue mountainous crystal area, and that's where I based the later one. But these could be like a corrupted version, and then the normal ones would be like that blue color that's the same as the area.
Yeah.
So that geode is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's like a black hole.
Yeah. I could also imagine like the goopiness sort of on occasion sort of forming up, and then one of these sort of walks out, and it's sort of independent as like a bruised crystal warrior who can be a little more independent thinking and more dangerous even.
Oh man, I just see you mentioned that, and all of a sudden my head went into panel layouts, and I could just see how you'd break down, showing that the ooze coming in, and then how it would retreat and stuff. And there's so many among us that would just do amazing layouts for a sequence like that, right? That's like one that people would fist fight over getting to put together. We'll fight for it. I think here's your Bruise Piper.
The Bruise Piper,
Connor.
I just really like the idea that not only would it like take over like body parts, it doesn't necessarily take over the body of one person.
Oh yeah.
So this is like a chimera thing. It doesn't have to look like this. It could be, they could have like dog-looking bones combining with another species' bones, because it's just grabbing bones that it thinks go in the right place.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's just golems that are just
and they're built so and they play their pipes like the Pied Piper. They're attracting people. I wrote in the little rhyme that I had put down to the thing. I'd put the weak-willed, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But it would be like that sort of mind control where even that people you lose your identity even before you've even gotten to the bruise taking over you or corrupting you.
Oh yeah,
it's just a scary concept. And it's a skeleton, spooky skeletons.
Fun to draw, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you can mash it up like that, and that's part of that objective too. Is it wasn't just to make a cool bad guy; it was to make something that really everybody in our collective could bring their own flair to, and it would still make sense because the Bruise-Black can just encompass all those ideas. So having this mashup where you can bring in every kind of anatomy and mix it all up just adds to that creative sensibility for it. That's brilliant.
And when I posted this, you brought up the hands, because a lot of people would use the hands for the bruise itself. And so I thought I'd avoid making the hands come out, but these are the opposite sort of. There's still hands coming out of it, but they're the hands of like victims of people being taken. And then there could be like a visual where a hand goes down and then like a bruised hand comes up.
Yeah. And then there's always that level of, there are characters who succumb to something like this, and characters who resist something like this, and characters who will embrace a situation like this and become a leader in it, to become a Bruise Piper or whatever. Some characters would just rise up and become powerful, absorb the power of it, while other people would just sort of melt into the mass identity and just be, hands and faces screaming in a mass.
Oh, I like that idea. Like in D&D, you've got there's slimes in D&D, and they all have like a central skull. Yeah. So the more the creature that's like more stronger, is got a stronger will, but also still gets corrupted by the Piper, could be the skull, and that is what like attracts the rest of the bones together.
Oh yeah, that's a good one
to make the big chimeric.
that creates a really easy writing concept for others to pick up, and we can hand that off really easily if we have a concept where there is some kind of lead object or dominance, kind of like the poltergeist, where there's a controlling personality to this entity, that kind of thing.
I also was kind of picturing that there would be more than one, so there would be like a scene where the characters are being like lured towards, and there would be like a horizon or like a hellscape, and there's about 3 or 4 of them all playing at the same time, skeletal like chimeric masses with trumpets. I don't know if there would be trumpets from the different races or it doesn't have to be trumpets, it could be anything, but they're pipers, but different instruments from different races, or there could be a construct of the ooze. When I drew it, I was picturing that the race that it came from already had these kind of like fanciful fictional pipes. So I gave him the little tam o'shanter thing with the little feather coming out his cap, but I made it the ooze and the little tabard thing coming down, mainly just because it's hard to draw rib cages.
The instrument is really cool.
And it was evocative of I really appreciate Guy Davis, and he did a lot of work for Mike Mignola's BPRD series. And in those comics, I mean, it was really just apocalyptic end of the world. And every once in a while, there'd just be these double splash page vistas of a former city just crumbled with these chthonic like deities, just masses in the horizon, several of them just like consuming creatures, right? And so when you mentioned these, several pipers, whatever, leading these like gobs of the ooze like that, I can definitely see these amazing panoramic opportunities for artists to just kind of go nuts with that. So I'm going to step on to the last topic that we really have here is we keep wanting to chase ahead of this first issue. Okay? Right now, we're just trying to nail down what's going to happen in this 26-page event and get our panel assignments and start rolling with it. But we're artists, we're writers, all of us, and we're thinking of what's going to come next. And I know one of the images that showed up this week was Gotham had some ideas about pirates and things in the future. And I just wanted to share that image because I thought that was pretty cool. And the idea, that there are other factions even besides the Starbreakers on Quilt. And so it's something that we'll be able to bring in a lot of those other elements and stuff as we move forward. And at this point, it's just an awesome image, but in the future, it can be a whole other factional angle of what we choose to write and explore.
Yeah, he really got that swashbuckler kind of vibe. It's very cool.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up was we've been starting to get some other artists wanting to suggest things and make some posts where we've been hashtagged at the Indie Comic Union. And so we'll start showing off some incoming transmissions. I know this one came out today by Carl Fawcett, and he did another one of Appanon, I think a week ago. I didn't remember to grab that one, and I just remembered it now, but I'll see what I can do. But I thought this was lovely. I always love his inks, but those teeth on the Bruise-Black are just right on.
Sad Tar is I hate to say it, is best Tar. It looks so good. I think it's just because it's the black with the surrounding the white, but the expressiveness of the eyes. I think that's my favorite thing about drawn Tar, is that usually like to express him, I put his eyes like on tendrils. Yeah. Rather than, because most of the time in the other drawings, his eyes are all sort of next to each other. But I think his eyes, especially if it's going to be super expressive, need to really be like tendrily. I'm doing a lot of hand movements.
And speaking of hand movements, one of the things that I saw and really liked was that there's 5 appendages really with the 3 eyes and that. So putting my hand up, it's like a hand. So now the next time I draw Tar, I know I'm going to be trying to draw them as a hand gesture and see what I can do with that. Cause that's kind of cool seeing it, because it's kind of like a thumb and 4 fingers splayed out there.
Yeah, that's a lot of expression.
Yeah.
There should be a scene where there's something really big that needs pushed, and he uses all his eyes and his 2 hands to push at the same time.
Oh, that would be such a great moment. Even like trying to slip through the crack at the end of the first issue. Someone could insinuate that in a panel.
Oh, it'd be really creepy to do like a like almost like a Spider-Man-esque crawl where he uses his eyes and his arms to like climb up the wall.
Oh man, yeah. See, there's another great panel sequence where you just want a silent like motion piece that you run through panels with. And then one more that I have here, Axel Bowman had an Aponon that was up last week as well. And
Cool.
I always love those that kind of the manga style, like oversized armor feet, like super robot style. He's definitely got that going on here.
Yeah. Oh, this is cool. I hadn't seen this. I was just thinking of, I haven't done any sketches yet, so I'm kind of excited to come in totally looking at what everybody else is doing. But I was just imagining it's maybe even more scary to see these goopy forms that maybe sometimes they even fight each other. Like they don't get along even with themselves. Like, so it's just even worse.
Oh yeah, it's like this is
Good idea, all right.
tangled hive. It's
yeah, like that Borg thing. They're so organized and they're on the same path and they're going to really do. But in this case, maybe they're like can't even agree on everything, and it's
I think that's brilliant, Matt.
Yeah.
Because the idea of the quilt is this collage of different patches from across the galaxy, right? And the gods tire of it, and we've seen we can quote the Borg or anything else as evidence that we've seen, an organized system come in and basically dissolve something or absorb something. But to see a truly anarchistic system come, something that doesn't even like itself, it's even self-loathing, is a wonderful twist on that whole Borg or symbiote thing.
And that goes to, what Scott, Domesticated Afterlife, was showing us with this pulling itself apart. And it's just, but it's like, so maybe it's even more terrifying to see this if we draw it sometimes, like, sure, it's like coming to attack, but you also see some sort of infighting and some other stuff, and it's just sort of horrible.
Yeah, I love that.
That's an amazing idea that say it took over one group and it took over another group, and those people didn't like each other. It would automatically gain an insecurity, which sort of makes it more of a character rather than just like a mass as well. Even though what it did was such like an evil, monstrous thing, you start feeling bad after it's done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it separates it from the Borg stuff a little bit too.
Yes, I think so too. That's that thing of genre fiction. A lot of times it's not about the idea being completely original. It's about working that idea until you find an angle that you can explore and do something a little extra with, or take it into a just new territory. And Matt, I think you just elevated us from not really understanding what the Bruise-Black was as an identity that we own. And you gave us that key that we can now open up and peek in and go, oh, the Bruise-Black even hates itself. That's what makes its identity unique. That's what we explore, is that it's devouring everything, including itself. I mean, you could see those hands coming up and punching out the other faces within it just as much as they're punching everything else. And I look at that and I go, that will be really fun to draw.
Yeah. Cool.
Why don't I'll give us our outro. Connor, are you ready for this?
1 second. I've got flashcards.
Okay. Thank you for joining us again at the Indie Comic Union as we work on our collaborative comic, The Quilt. I've had an amazing time coming together with you guys to get a little bit more insight into what's going to happen with our villainous Bruise-Black. And I think we just did that too quite well. So on that note, Connor, can you send us out?
Yeah. 1 second. I'm just a little bit. So I wrote this down. So like, I don't know if it's backwards on there, and I just realized I wrote subscribe, but it's subscribe, obviously.
Thank you for going all out.
I had the camera on. I needed to do something.
You really upped your game this week. That was awesome. So, would be joining us again soon, but it's going to be in a new capacity where we're moving on from concept art into a whole new world of panel production. It's going to be awesome.